Okay, now please welcome the following. I'm actually moderating this one, so we can all clap when they get on the stage, I guess. Head of MEA Policy at Chainalysis, Arushi Goэль. Founder and CEO of Luna Media Corporation, my very good friend Nikita Sachdev. She's the best PR company here, dare I say. This is my personal opinion. Regional head of CEE, Central Asia and Africa at Binance, Kirill Homякov. General partner at BR Capital, Wladислав Mартынов. And my buddy, ecosystem director at DMCC, Belal Джассоma, I should say his name better. And I'll be moderating. So I'm Gordon Eynstein, your local crypto attorney. So can I welcome the panel onto the stage? So I guess Nikita, Kirill, we might as well line it up, right? How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to start. The topic is scaling Web3 in business, which I guess would be the focus, on the practical tools or practical methods you can apply Web3 to grow up your business. So first question is kind of general, but let's touch on it. So how has crypto adoption evolved globally and specifically in the UAE? Like, what's really going on? Has it grown roots or is it taking off? Nikita.
Awesome, so I guess I'll begin. Hi everyone, my name is Nikita Sachdef. I'm actually usually a moderator at all the panels, so it's quite different, unique perspective.
In Soviet Russian, I moderate you.
Yeah, we're like the other way around.
Radio Armenia.
Yeah, okay. Cool, yeah. So I think in the last year, even though we've kind of endured the largest bear market, 700-day bear market, and we still don't know, are we in a bull market now? But I think we've had some very positive news come in from institutions, and we've seen Bitcoin ETFs come up globally, not just in the US and Hong Kong. So it's great. We're definitely heading towards the mass adoption that we've all kind of been looking out for. In the UAE particularly, I think the region is it's sprouting, it's budding. This region is growing so quickly. When I moved here 4 years ago, I noticed there was everything to support crypto and blockchain adoption, from educational systems to, you have Dubai Blockchain Center, Abu Dhabi Blockchain Center, universities teaching the course, blockchain, even not just Dubai or the UAE talking the talk, but also walking the walk. So blockchain actually being implemented into everyday life here, and policies like the policy to make Dubai a blockchain government, blockchain-based government by 2025. So there are a lot of...
And just to be clear, it's already digital.
It's already digital.
And we had a panel yesterday, they were talking about that, they couldn't go straight to blockchain, they had to do that intermediate step. Fair enough, but what was the year for full blockchain?
2025. So next year they plan to make the Dubai government blockchain backed, which means that they want to put your title deeds on the blockchain, or kind of start moving identities towards the blockchain. But you're already seeing that. Remember when you go through the airport, I always give this analogy, you don't have to scan your passport. The technology is on the blockchain. So they're implementing it seamlessly here. And I think that's the beauty of it. You don't need to know how your Apple Pay works when you pay with your phone. You don't need to know that blockchain is being used. I think that's the best part of it, and the UAE is really nailing that.
Interesting. Now, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Normally, I would just plow down the road with the same question, but because of time constraints, because we have lots of questions, I think I'll mix it up. So let me just throw the next one to you. So please, so how are global policies developing, and what should companies focus on as they adapt?
Yeah, so...
and who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Kirill Homякov.
With the microphone.
Yeah, I'm Kirill Homякov, or KK. I'm responsible for the Central and Eastern Europe, CS, and Africa at Binance. So I cannot speak too much about the MENA, but I can tell a couple of words about the global. So from the global perspective, we are still super early. There is around just 55 million on-chain addresses that exist right now. And this is less than 1% of the global population, versus the internet penetration is more than 67% of the users globally, which is less than 1% of them has an on-chain address. So this means that the global adoption is really very, very early, and there is a huge space to grow, right? And regulation is one of the issues, and UAE is obviously leading the way, as well as some other places like Europe or some other countries that already has an established regulation. But I think for the global adoption...
That's actually a little bit bold. I mean, MICA or MICA, whatever you call it, is just now coming into place. Would you call it established?
I call it established because it's actually the first ever regional regulation. That's not for one country, but for the whole region. Mm-hmm. So once it is really rolling, and it's the second step is from the 1st of January, it will create the whole ecosystem for the company that have one license to operate across all the EU member states.
Right, and I'll ask an amorphous question. Do you think it's a good regulation? Do you think it's something businesses can adapt to?
Well,
and just remember, you're being recorded on the blockchain.
There is always some room for improvement, but it's an inevitable process, right? All the countries eventually, sooner or later, will go through some sorts of the regulation. So the more it is unified, the better it is for all the stakeholders of the industry, for the exchanges, for the regulators, for the community, for the users.
Fantastic. Now, Arushi, you're good. You're a panelist who actually provided questions in advance, but I don't know which questions you invited because it's not tagged. So just introduce yourself, and maybe you can address the topic as what you wanted to say.
Sure, thanks, Gordon. Hi, everyone. I'm Arusha Goэль, Head of Policy, Middle East Africa at Chainalysis. I can actually address both of them very briefly. In terms of what we are seeing, crypto adoption trends globally, like Gordon mentioned, right, we were in a kind of a bear market back in 2023, especially towards the end of 2023. And then when we look at the data, especially Q1 of 2024, we saw a massive, substantial increase in crypto activity that was on-chain. And that kind of goes to show where our markets are heading. Even when we look at geographically, in terms of different countries with different income brackets, we've seen an almost proportionate increase in crypto adoption across countries with all sorts of income brackets. But what's been interesting is that countries with very high income brackets, we've seen a bit of a pullback. We've actually seen more crypto adoption in countries which are medium to lower income brackets.
So let me jump in, and then I'll pass it right back to you. Is that maybe because in more stable or high income countries, it's a bit of a hobby, but in lower income countries, it's a bit of a necessity?
That's one way to infer it, right? Okay. I mean, all of this is not going to be super conclusive. These are all inferments that we make based on the data we have and the context that we have. But just to answer that question as well, when we go at the asset level, when it comes to Bitcoin, because of the Bitcoin ETF, we saw a lot of large institutional-sized investments moving into Bitcoin. But when it comes to stable coins, it's actually the retail and professional-sized investments, which are less than $10,000. That's what's driving a lot of stablecoin usage. When it comes to meme coins and altcoins, it's kind of has been picking up across the globe in various jurisdictions. So I'd say it's a bit of a mixed bag, but to a certain extent, what you say can be inferred in terms of the assets that are being used or adopted in all these different jurisdictions.
So let me ask you, as someone in Chainalysis, obviously have a lot of visibility. I remember for years now, not just given current geopolitical situations, I remember for years now, I keep on hearing that a lot of the Chinese-Russian trade on the border was being done in USDT just because it's convenient, not because it's necessarily nefarious. This is back in 2020, let's say. Is it just retail, or it seems like just an easy way to transmit value back and forth? And what is your visibility at Chainalysis into this, or do you have visibility?
We have some visibility. In fact, we looked at stable coins. We even have some anecdotal evidence that businesses are using stable coins for conducting cross-border trade. We did not really put a number to it because we had a smaller sample data to work with, but we've generally seen the merchants' use of stable coins increase quite significantly year on year. And it's really, places which have a very costly access to dollar or generally have a dollar shortage.
And countries which are importing a lot of goods, they tend to kind of turn towards US dollar-backed stable coins to a certain extent. So yes, businesses are using these.
Fantastic. So Belal, you're uniquely positioned at the DMCC to address the interface between Web3 and how it's actually useful for business. You're an environment for those companies, and I know that you're being very progressive, especially with Uptown and everything else. Give me the sort of non-puffy answer about the interface between Web3 and real-life business and what the DMC is looking to accomplish, both right now and in the future.
Great. Well, that's actually my favorite topic. So, I mean, starting with adoption.
I gave you a softball, but I want a hardball answer.
I mean, if you look at the Chainalysis report, and correct me actually if I'm wrong, UAE comes on the 3rd or 4th highest in the index of crypto adoption worldwide. We come after Singapore and Switzerland. And that goes to the leadership of the UAE and how they've always been pro-disruptive technology as we transition from dependency on fossil fuels away into the becoming a knowledge-based economy, basically. So the previous panel talked a little bit negatively about MOUs that are having no use. But if you look at some of the pilot projects that are happening here one example is between Cardano and Dubai Police that are piloting using blockchain for criminal investigations. There was also a project with Dubai Customs using blockchain technology for transactions as well. At DMCC in particular, we're seeing a lot of interest in using blockchain for traceability and authenticity. So with the regulation in Europe coming around the digital product passport, we've seen LVMH and Gucci and Bulgari use blockchain being immutable, which is the perfect technology for this use, for traceability of their luxury brands. What else?
Actually, let me ask, that's actually a little pet interest of mine. Like a lot of these luxury brands face counterfeits that are knockoffs, but a lot of them face their OEM manufacturer, if you like, in the home country. They do their official run for the brand, and then they keep on manufacturing for sort of gray market. It's the same bag. It's just outside of the contract because they know how to do it. Can blockchain track and trace that? And is there maybe a desire not to implement it just to let them keep on getting away with what they're doing?
I think it can. I mean, if there's a technology that can do that, that's definitely blockchain. But I'm sure the panelists can also comment that later on today as well.
So talk a little bit more about the DMCC and how you're positioning yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, this is the reason why we got into blockchain in the first place. I mean, DMCC traditionally is a commodities hub. So we started by transforming a lot of the commodities industry. Taken as an example, diamond. I mean, Dubai was nowhere in the map when it came to diamond trade, and 20 years later, we're the leading rough diamond hub, and the UAE is leading or chairing the Kimberley process for the 2nd term now. So we looked at blockchain technology as the solution to basically transform trade and take it to the next level. And this is when we started seeing projects such as tokenization of gold, which is what excites us today as well. And there's other also tokenization use cases that are in the pipeline. Last year, we helped the first gold tokenization project come off the ground, and there are more coming up. With RWA and gold in particular, with a market cap early this year being $1.1 billion, I think there's a lot more potential in this area as well.
It is. So, Vladislav, I have a question directed to you, but maybe you can give a moment of background about yourself and BR Capital, just for the audience to get to know you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm Vlad. I'm general partner of BR Capital, which is investment fund primarily investing in Web3 projects. We exist 7 years already and been doing on the market.
Sorry, did I hear that? Web3 projects for the past 7 years?
Yeah, we started like 7 years ago, primarily investing in DeFi projects.
Okay.
Did very good,
okay.
And now we kind of spread portfolio in the different segments in the Web3. I'd like to make a couple comments about global regulations situation, because this, from my perspective, was one of the biggest roadblock in terms of mass adoption. And this year was, from my perspective, quite remarkable, because I remember when we I was a part of Ethereum in early days, and in 2017, we travel around to different countries just trying to educate people and governments, particular governments. I was responsible for the government relationship at this time, to educate what is this all about, like crypto and blockchain. And it was quite a lot of interest at this time from kind of countries like Georgia, Ukraine, Montenegro, small countries all around the world, just to implement liberal legislation. There was like a lot of excitement at this time. Then it's a kind of a little bit over time degraded, because it was an ICO scam, etc. People prefer to stay away from this. But this year, I saw a huge interest, like a second wave of interest, how kind of contents, competition between different countries, which free zone or which country will have more liberal legislation for crypto than anybody else. We know, like, we have Web3 zone in Ras Al Khaimah here, we have in Georgia, in a few other countries. But this is very good trend, by the way. In addition to all fundamentals we see this year, I mean, steady growing number of crypto users and many other things, this shift is tremendous. And also, I'd like to draw your attention, if you look back in presidential campaign in the United States, like 6 months ago, all candidates, or two candidates, was a kind of crypto-negative narratives. They have crypto-negative narratives. And suddenly, over a couple of weeks, suddenly everything changed. Both like Biden and Trump started saying, oh, crypto is good. And actually what happened, they did a major research about who will vote for them. And the research shows that a new generation of people who grew up and become politically active, they would vote for the person who will be crypto-friendly. So from my perspective, generation shift.
Let me interrupt and then I'll pass it back to you. So
yeah.
For better or for worse, I'm from America.
Yeah.
And I am under the personal impression that they're saying what they need to say to get elected, but that there's structural reasons, unfortunately, there's structural reasons why the US specifically can't embrace crypto like everyone else, mainly the predominance of the dollar and SWIFT and everything else. So is it, in your opinion, in your point of view, maybe as an outsider, is it talking or is it reality when the candidates get more crypto friendly?
Look, I don't trust politicians, so most likely...
Wait,
yeah.
Are you serious?
So,
no way.
But most likely they do it to win election.
Yeah.
But the problem, the substance here is not what they talk. The substance, there is a new generation which demand more liberal legislation. And no matter what they were going to do after election, they will be on the tough spot, because if they will not fulfill their kind of promise, people will return back and say, this is what you said, because right now, like everything, any video, any speech is on the internet. So there will be, that will be much more difficult for them to kind of step away from what they, step back from what they promised. So from this perspective, it's a very good trend, because we are moving from the kind of regulatory warfare where we fight with regulators into like regulatory acceptance of our industry. This is the good, it's a major shift, and it's a good beginning of, from my perspective, new era for mass adoption of Web3 and crypto in general.
Interesting. Nikita, let me ask you, we're talking again about Web3 and scaling your business. You're the go-to person when it comes to marketing and PR. Every time I try to refer someone to you, they've already been referred. It's a little frustrating. But I'm gonna maybe throw you a hardball. VARA, the local regulator, the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, keeps on coming out, or has recently, I guess, come out with hardened marketing regs. And you, I think, maybe even have an international perspective on this. How do you maneuver through that thicket, or you just say, go ask your lawyer, or what do you do?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. So first of all, VARA issues guidelines for marketing every couple of months. And I think as a PR agency, it's very important for us to be aware of what those guidelines are. So as soon as they're out, I send it out to my team. We have to go through it. I think one thing that we pride ourselves as an agency is that we're super compliant with our work. We're even steering away from...
Sorry, I'll do my usual thing of interrupting, then passing it back to you. Is it possible to be compliant in the sense that are the rules clear enough to comply with?
Yeah, so we're steering away from even calling ourselves a marketing agency, because we're more PR, public relations, and communications focused. Now, with a marketing agency, I see a lot of I see a lot of services that, such as shilling, or like going and putting comments on Twitter, or getting these moderators to like fake these, like pretend that they're into a project, or like I'm going to put this token in my bag. don't do that. Like, we don't do that. And I think it's very important for agencies to be aware that doing something like that is illegal and the implications behind it. So as a public relations and communications agency, our job is to make sure that, number one, if we are working with any project, we understand if there is security or not, and that's our due diligence. And number two, we make sure that whatever we're getting out to the media is we're telling a story, giving a narrative to the media, and it's up to them how they want to portray it, and it's our job to make sure that it's being portrayed in the best light possible.
So how do you, let me ask a quick follow-up. It's a little bit off topic, but it's interesting. So your lane is the PR, but you're going to work with clients who say, fine, great, that's your lane. I also have this marketing lane that this other company is doing. Is there ever, I'm throwing you a hardball, but I know you can do it. Is there ever a tension between your PR practices and what the client is doing in the marketing lane that's sort of with someone else?
I think that it's very important for us to advise our clients to grow organically, and I think what we take care of is all the communication aspects. So that would be the media, how the client is being portrayed in public, or even their social media platforms. But what we always tell our clients to do is, like, instead of going to another agency to get moderators, a couple of moderators to go out and shill your token, try to grow that organically, where your users, your retail investors, actually have vested interest in the project and are putting, are spreading information based on their own personal, their personal investments. They're not sharing financial advice, and then even when working with KOLs, we try to steer as far from that as possible. I think the best way to do it is if there is a high, or rather influence. There's a big difference between influencers and KOLs. When working with KOLs, get KOLs that actually want to get involved in your project. You don't have to pay KOLs.
Back when I was young, we called them advisors.
Advisors, yeah. I mean, it's like advisors with a lot of following and influence.
Yeah, but
so,
actually, sorry.
So yeah, can I just mention one thing about the political side? As an American, there is one presidential candidate in the running who's actually been pro-crypto for longer than
Robert
the other,
Kennedy.
and yeah, and I just want to just say that, he has in particular launched a couple of NFT projects and his own crypto company. So I genuinely do think he is pro-crypto. Just saying.
I have no idea who you're talking about. Kirill. Okay, so very subtle. Okay, so let me direct this to you, because I think in your position at Binance, you're uniquely in a position of response. So as companies scale their Web3 initiatives, what key challenges do they face, particularly in terms of infrastructure, regulation, or talent acquisition? I guess it's kind of like I'm asking on behalf of your clients. What issues are they facing as they grow globally as a Web3 companies?
So the main challenge for the adoption right now is to keep the user retention high, right? This is not happening in the...
Well, you just need to get a good PR company.
Well,
Kirill.
yeah,
okay.
we are working on that already.
I've leached them.
Love to score Binance.
To keep the retention, because in the Web2 space, the 25-40% retention after 6 months is a normal numbers. But in the Web3 space, in the depths, most probably after 6 months, the retention rate is going to be less than 5%. So that's the main issue, to create the use cases for the users to be able to use the Web3 applications every day, like ride-sharing applications or the social media, right? So what's happening now, what the trend that we have seen this year is that applications are just paying users for their attention, right? Either via the airdrops or points, and that's how they retain the users. But it doesn't actually create
is that, I mean, I think our natural instinct is to feel that that's wrong, but is that actually wrong? Maybe that's just a harbinger of the new economy.
So this doesn't create a core value proposition for the users, and it also creates inorganic user behavior. So as soon as this airdrop happens, user immediately and forever leave this application, right? So there is no core value there. Similar with the meme coins, right? So it's just a way to get rich very, very quickly. So in order to support the crypto adoption, we really need more use cases and bridging the gap, how to get these users from the Web 2 coming into the Web 3. But this is really a complex task.
Interesting. And then I think I want to ask a Rushy question. So Look, chain analysis to me is fascinating. I'm going to ask an amorphous, out of the world question here. Do companies view you as the ally, as an enemy, as something they have to deal with? What's your marketing position?
Wow.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
Comms would not be happy about it, but let's take a hit at that. We work with everyone. We are a technology provider. We've got tools that help you manage your risks. We've got tools that gives you a view into what your growth strategy could be, because we look at the on-chain data, we augment it, enhance it using a whole host of off-chain data, right? Social media data, open source intelligence, data that our private partners share with us, data that law enforcement shares with us. We just augment it, and we share it with whoever uses our tools. So we work with public sector, we work with private sector a lot. A lot of the private sector, bigger players, smaller players, they are clients. On the public sector sides, law enforcement, regulators, supervisors, FIUs, all of them are clients. So we're kind of placed in the middle, very well positioned to be establishing some great public-private partnerships, which we are doing in the space.
Let me I know you've been instrumental in working with local government and local authorities and educating them on this technology, which maybe actually gives them the comfort to move forward in implementing it.
100%. I mean, in my role, especially as a head of policy, I work very closely with regulators in sharing data and insights and kind of helping, wherever possible, having discussions around what kind of policies make the most sense for which jurisdiction. And, back to the policy question you had, I'll just take about 30 seconds. We're seeing different jurisdictions move into different directions, right? There are jurisdictions who think, oh, we've banned crypto, and we're kind of okay with it. The fact remains that's not okay, because bans don't work if you don't monitor them. Otherwise, it's not a ban. You're just doing nothing about it, right? The other bit is jurisdictions which have a very narrow AML, anti-money laundering regime, because they're really, really focused on the financial integrity space. And then you have jurisdictions like UAE, which have a much more comprehensive lens of the ecosystem. They're not just trying to regulate it, they want to build the ecosystem, which is why when you look at regulators like ADGM or VARA or even RAGDA, which is not a regulator, but it's a free zone, focused on Web3. Their focus is not just putting out a set of guidelines and rule books, but it's about how do we bring in the best talent? How do we bring in the best companies to the region? Because they will kind of kickstart that maturity model that will help the ecosystem grow in a much more broad-based manner. So just wanted to kind of share that categorization of how we see jurisdictions evolving on the global policy front.
Fascinating. I love it. So we're down to the final seconds here. Let's do a speed run. So what do you see fast? What do you see for Web3 adoption and challenges and opportunities in 2025?
US,
I started with you to just put you on the spot.
Challenges, US regulatory framework.
You're welcome.
Gary Gensler.
Yeah.
Opportunities, more mass adoption, probably bull run.
Nice. Cool.
Good products with the bad distribution will have their space. But the bad products with a very good distribution and marketing and whatever will not find the space in the community. So keep building. That's the advice.
Buildable. Great. Fantastic.
I'll talk about the regulatory part, because otherwise I can talk for hours on this. The regulatory part, arbitrage is still an issue for bigger companies to kind of expand. Opportunities, like I think Vlad also mentioned, regulators are looking at the sector much more from a lens of providing clarity. So I think that's an opportunity.
Belal?
DeFi 2.0, much better versions of Web3 games, and RWA and more advanced.
Opportunities, I think a lot of very popular apps from Web 2 finally will get amazing growth in the Web 3, for example, like social media, like data storage, emails, because anyway, that's I see as a huge opportunity, because it's been for a while, but for some reasons it didn't really fly. One of the reasons was like high cost of transaction, another is the regulation, but this is, from my perspective, amazing opportunity. In terms of challenges, yeah, I mentioned like regulation is the biggest roadblock as of now.
Big round of applause for our wonderful panel. Thank you guys, well done.
Thank you.